刚好在120有2个就是交换生，那他在台湾已经待了将近1个学期了哈。他的中文名字叫做曾玉安哈，待会让他自我介绍。那主任就是因为他最近都会来这里中午的那个中文课程哈，有时候他有自主学习的时间，所以我来邀请他来参与这个课程。那他今天会用英文，然后我们尽量呢如果你们需要翻译的话主任没有办法帮你们翻译那需要翻译的话，你们或许可以尽力的去听那他就是我们就是让玉安同学他看到的台湾的现象跟就是他在德国的现象应该有一些不同。好，我们欢迎呢曾玉安同学，鼓掌欢迎他。
Hello, my name is Max. I am an exchange student from Germany, and today I will try to explain some differences between the Taiwanese and German education system. And let's get to the contents, what we'll be discussing today. First, I'd like to quickly address Taiwan's education system, and primarily its main structure, although I have to say I don't have a good understanding of it, especially because information on it in English is very sparse. Then we'll get to the biggest part of the presentation, namely Germany's education system. I'll give some short disclaimer or clarifications. I'll explain the structure, some additional types of school, you'll see why that's important, and some differences in other federal states. I will explain later. Then there will be a comparison, like a sort of quick chart, and then if time allows it, we'll have a Q&A time. So let's first get to Taiwan. A very short summary based on my understanding. This graph may not look like much, I know, but as far as I know, Taiwan's education system, after I guess some optional kindergarten, it starts with the Woxiao, or like the elementary school, for 6 years, I believe, from 1st grade to 6th grade. Then you'll get to a Guozhong, or like a junior high school, and for like 3 years, between the Guozhong and the Gaozhong, there will be a test which determines into which kind of school you get to, and in of itself, the Gaozhong, they're like the sort of general ones that prepare you for university, and I've heard from friends there's also a vocational variant, as in they prepare you for specific jobs and stuff. And then I guess most of you will take another test and then go to a university, I assume. And also in Taiwan, cram schools or Bu Xibang, they are very common. I mean, they are optional, but mainly I've heard that parents usually send their children there as like a sort of make sure they're studying, because they are usually tutored and drilled there for upcoming tests and just general exercises. And yeah, that's it for Taiwan. Please let me know if I got anything wrong. Let's get to the major part of the presentation, which is Germany. And let us start with some important disclaimers. Because Germany is divided into 16 federal states, so essentially there are 16 states in Germany. And specifically regarding education, each state is responsible for its own education system. In German, this is called Bildungshoheit. And this leads from variations in the education system from state to state. And what I'll be doing is focusing on my state, Bavaria. And also there's only so much I can cover within like break time. Any information might not be complete or accurate, so you can look it up yourself. If you want to, I can give you a link afterwards. So this is the main structure. As you can see, there's a bit more. So in Germany, after an optional kindergarten, you first get to the Grundschule, which is like elementary school. In Bavaria, it's from 1st to 4th grade, and what it does is, it teaches you basic skills, just like the elementary school in Taiwan. And then, depending on your grades, or mainly depending on your grades and maybe parental recommendation, you can either get to one of these three types of schools. Let's take a look at the first one. I will explain the rest of the graph later. So this one is the Mittelschule. I guess you could translate it as like vocational school. And this is from 5th to 9th grade. And it teaches mainly practical skills, as in skills for like hands-on jobs, like carpentry, among other things. And what you get at the end of this vocational school, at the end of 9th grade, is something called qualifizierender Abschluss, so qualifying diploma, or just quickly quali. You are also given the option of going to an optional 10th grade called the M2, or math branch. And within that year, at the end of that additional year, you write another exam, which gives you the Mittlerer Schulabschluss, so I guess middle diploma, or the MSA. And the next branch, which I guess is one of the higher branches you can go to, is called the Realschule. I guess from your school or something. Anyways, this one goes from 5th to 10th grade. It prepares for jobs, so employment, or further education. Like, for example, more higher education or training, I guess, in jobs, for example. And it teaches more theoretical knowledge, because the Mittelschule is primarily practical, but the Realschule itself also teaches practical knowledge. And in 7th grade, like the important decision, you will have to select a specialization or branch. Now, you might not understand what you see here, but let me explain. The first one is Mathematik, or just the maths branch. The second one you can pick is the Betrieb und Wirtschaftslehre, or BWL, which is like economy mainly, like about learning how to run a business. The other one would be Werken, which is like arts and crafts. And you can also pick French, specifically as an extra branch. And the diploma you get is called Mittlere Reife. Then, the type of school I go to, I guess like the highest one, is called Gymnasium. It goes from 5th to 13th grade in Bavaria, and it's a university preparatory school, so it prepares you for university. And the diploma it gives you, which is called the Abitur, it is required for studying at university. So this is the main way you can get into university in Germany. And it is primarily separated into 3 levels, I guess. So again, you are at the same school, but the classes, they are grouped into 3 main levels. They are called Unterstufe, I guess like lower levels or lower classes, Mittelstufe, like the middle classes, and Oberstufe, the upper classes, I guess. So let's get to the Unterstufe, which goes from 5th to 7th grade. You have no specialization yet, so you have not chosen a branch yet. So there will be subjects like Natur und Technik, or nature and technology, which is kind of like a sort of introduction to biology and physics, but it's like very broad. Or in 5th grade, specifically, Zeit für Talente, or time for talents. It's like a kind of, like the students get to pick like something they're interested in, like biology, and then they get a sort of like kid-friendly, like make them more interested in that subject if they want to. And at the end of 5th grade, you have to choose either Latin or French as your second foreign language. At the beginning of 5th grade, you will always study English, but then immediately at the end of 5th grade, you will be required to select either Latin or French. And then this goes on until the end of 7th grade, where you finally select your branch, which is like, again, like before, a specialization of sorts. Now there are many kinds of these specializations, but the ones my school offered were Naturwissenschaftlich-Technologisches Gymnasium, or like the one that focuses on natural science and technology, the Sprachliches Gymnasium, which focuses on languages. You have like a third foreign language, and Wirtschaftswissenschaftliches Gymnasium, which is the one that talks about economy and economical science and stuff. And then we get to the Mittelstufe, which is from 8th to 10th grade, so after you've chosen your branch, and then you get the first specialized subjects depending on your branch. Physics, chemistry, and biology. Okay, so biology, everyone has that, no matter which branch they pick, but physics and chemistry, because I picked the natural sciences branch, I get those subjects first. The other people, they get them later, like 9th, 10th grade. And then computer science, which is also a subject, I get first in 9th grade, and then economy and law and economy computer science. Like the economy computer science is specifically for the economy branch, but economy and law is something everyone gets in 10th grade. And then at the end of 10th grade, which is like the last year before the Oberstufe, you either have to select music or art as a subject you want to continue. You cannot continue both. You're also given the option to replace your second foreign language with Spanish, though I didn't pick it, because that would mean I would have to pass a test once I get back to see how well I can speak Spanish while I was in Taiwan. And then you have to select your peace seminar. The peace seminar is the practical seminar. It's kind of like this. They present topics from a range of subjects to you. For example, physics, like a physical, or like an escape room with physics puzzles, for example. Or, for example, creating like a sort of experiment kit for biological experiments for like 5th graders. And then you can pick what interests you. And this will be like a sort of group project where you sit with other people and you yourself have to design this project. Of course the teacher guides you, but you yourself have to do the heavy lifting. And once you pass 10th grade at a gymnasium, it is equivalent to the diploma you get at the Realschule, so after 10th grade. So sort of passing 10th grade is already kind of your diploma. Okay, so now things are going to get interesting. The Oberstufe, or the upper classes, the 11th grade, is not theoretically quite the Oberstufe yet. It's an introductory class, which means that the grades itself are not relevant to your final exam, to your Abitur. But what you will notice is that they will change the method to be more akin to what you'd see in like 12th and 13th grade. So it sort of eases you in to like the more difficult things. Of course, you have your peace seminar throughout the entire year. This will be graded and will appear in your final diploma, the grade. You also have the Wissenschaftswoche, or Science Week, which is a sort of a preparation for the W seminar. I'll explain what it is very soon. But sort of the students get introduced to scientific methods of working. For example, researching and stuff, experiments, and how to do it properly. And then you will be required to select courses and your exams. Yes, you get to select what exams you want to take for 12th and 13th grade. You also have to select the W seminar. W seminar stands for Wissenschaftspropädeutisches Seminar, which you're going to be writing a small scientific research paper. Yeah. So of course the teacher will guide you through it, like for example introducing the topic, but you yourself will have to write a paper about that topic and also have to design a presentation which you will have to present to the teachers and then have a discussion with them about it. This is also graded and will appear in your diploma. And there's also the introduction of EVA, or Eigenverantwortliches Arbeiten, which means independent or like self-directed learning, where the teacher will ask you, okay, we now have this topic in the book, and I will ask of you that you get together in groups and be able to explain, after a time, explain the topic yourself through a presentation. So you're sort of required to already research yourself in a kind of way. And then we get to the actual Oberstufe, or like the actual Abitur. Now, PULST is for Profil- und Leistungsstufe, and this is sort of, I guess you can kind of say, this is your final exam. the entirety of 12th and 13th grade is your exam, because every grade you write will count towards your final diploma. And also, no more distinct classes. So imagine that like you are like 116, 120, like first year, class 20, first year, class 16. Now it's just all one big 12th class. So no more classes in of itself. You will have to write the W seminar for the 12th grade and also for the beginning of 13th grade. You will have to present it by then. And then at the end of 13th grade, you have your final exams. They can be either oral or written based on your selection. Because like I said, you can select the final exams, what subjects you want to be tested in, you can select it yourself. So now that you've had all this input, let me give you more input and explain a bit more about the graph. So, this is what I said, like the Quali of the Mittelschule. And then you can, like I said before, get to the Mathe-Zweig, or like the math branch, and get your MSA, or the Mittlere Schulabschluss. This one is equivalent to the final diploma of the Realschule, which is again equivalent to the 10th grade when you pass 10th grade at the gymnasium. So what these orange arrows mean is that even if you pass only here, so if you only have this, through a nomination of your school, and if you have good enough grades, you can switch to the Oberstufe at a gymnasium to get like the Abitur to study at the university. This works the same with the Realschule final diploma, you can do it also. Now, over here, you can see that I wrote job and Berufsschule. Berufsschule means like job school. So after you graduate, let's say you finally get a job, and then, for example, as a carpenter, and then while you go to that job, while you're doing the job, you also have to go to a school that teaches you skills specifically for that job. And then after a few years, after you pass some tests and stuff, you will get the Geselle, which I guess means something like bachelor. And then you are a fully fledged member, or like you have a lot of expertise in that job now, so you can work full time. If you want, you can also further your knowledge with a Meister or Master, and then you might also be allowed to run your own business. Or like your business will sound more qualified when it's called when it's like run by a master in a subject. And also this only shows some of the possible schools and diplomas, those are not all, because just because I didn't mention it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, it's just that I don't have much space and much time. So there are also additional types of schools in Bavaria, because again, this is only Bavaria. There's also the Fachoberschule. For example, if you have your Realschule diploma, you don't have to go to a gymnasium. You can also go to a Fachoberschule, which means like a sort of applied high school, or high school of applied sciences, where you can, after a few years, get the Fachabitur, which is like a sort of specialized kind of Abitur, where they teach you more about specific subjects. You can then use this one to get into a university of applied sciences, not a non-university, University of Applied Sciences. And then, through if you, let's say you are working a job, like after your job school, you're finally working a full-time job, you can then, if you want to, after 5 years of work experience, and if you have the optional 10th grade diploma, the MSA, then you can decide to go to a Berufsschule for a few years and make your Abitur there. So you don't have to go to the Oberstufe del Gymnasium. You can also do it that way. And then for adults, there's the Abendgymnasium, or the evening gymnasium, where if you didn't get your Abitur beforehand, you can attend like a gymnasium-like school in the evening and work by day. So in the evening you study, you work by day, and eventually you can also get your Abitur that way. And then there's also Wirtschaftsschule, which is just like a Realschule or real school, but with a primary focus on economy and stuff. And there are also some differences between other states. I wrote down like 3. The first one would, for example, be in Berlin, where elementary school lasts from 1st to 6th grade, like in Taiwan. And then in Baden-Württemberg, which is the state left from Bavaria, there are also special types of schools called Werklehrschule, which is like a Realschule, but with a focus on arts and crafts, with a more practical focus. And then primarily in the northern states of Germany, you have something called Gesamtschule, or like kind of like whole schools, which combine all 3 school types. Don't ask me how that works. And I guess I wrote down the average day for me, only like for me. At 6 a.m. I wake up and get ready, eat breakfast and stuff. From 7:15 to 7:30, I then go to school. Then at 7:55, school begins, with each period being 45 minutes and only like 5 minutes for changing class. So no 10-minute break, only changing class. And from 8 to 10:10, we have 3 classes in total. And then after those, from 10:10 to 10:30, we have a 20-minute break time. And then again another 3 classes from 10:30 to 12:45, and then school's over. But on days where there might be afternoon classes, we have a 1-hour lunch break from 12:45 to 13:45, and then afternoon classes, usually 2 periods, so from 13:45 to 15:50, but at max until like 4 p.m. at max. So now we get to a comparison. I mean, you probably already have noticed many differences. It's quite different. So the next chart is just sort of what I've been thinking, and I just want to say that whenever I mention a point on that, just think like I'm saying relative to Germany, I think Taiwan is. So not like this is how it is, just like relatively speaking. So, I mean, some objective differences. For example, in Taiwan, the system is mainly very linear, so they just mainly one straight line. And in Germany, it has got a lot of branches and variations, and is less centralized because of the federal states, or like you've seen in the diagrams. What I've also noticed, like in general in Taiwan, is that there's more emphasis on like rote memorization, because all the tests are mainly just like multiple choice, and I feel like you just have to kind of cram all the correct answers into your head. But in Germany, tests are usually never multiple choice, very rarely, and usually the tests, probably in Taiwan too at some point, but in Germany I guess maybe earlier, they ask some more questions that test your understanding, not just what you've crammed in your head at the last second, I believe. And in Taiwan, there are definitely longer school hours, like for everyone. But in Germany, it's shorter school hours, but I believe it might be more compact, like as in from like the types of studying, or like the teaching part. But I'm not that quite sure. And I believe what I also noticed is that in Taiwan, there's more focus on the teacher, like when he's teaching, as in everyone just sits there quietly and the teacher speaks in front of a PowerPoint. Or students, they mainly only ask questions when they're asked to, and usually not out of free will, because they all, I've seen like this game you have to play, where he calls a number, and then those, like on the streets, they have to stand up, and whoever doesn't pay attention gets asked the question. But in Germany, I believe the focus in general is more on the student, again, like relatively in general, because usually the teacher asks questions that are not just ABCD, but, for example, like when he's trying to introduce you to a topic, or like just asks for your way of solving things, not just the way they're meant to be solved. So thank you for listening, everyone. That was my presentation. Here's some of the garbage sources. There's like one website I found in English about Taiwan, and I mainly got my information from friends, like here in Taiwan. And from Germany, I found this very good site about the Bavarian school system, but I also had to ask my friends and go by my experience. I don't know, any questions or feedback? Or did you not really understand anything?
You say a free bridge. So how many people choose each the free bridge?
That's a good question. I actually didn't pay attention to it, but there's definitely... I mean, I guess maybe gymnasium less, because gymnasium is more selective because of the grades, but I don't believe there's like a lot of difference, I think. Anyone else? Any feedback? Okay, then I guess that's it. Thank you again for listening.